Let's start off with this video. This didn't actually come out of a case. This was sent to me by a friend of mine, and this happened to his wife. This is an iPhone video from her iPhone. And what happened was, so I can preface what you're about to see, is somebody didn't like something that she did in traffic. And so this occurred just north of the 56 on Carmel Valley Road at the intersection of Del Mar Heights, right where the Trader Joe's is, Canyon Crest High School, right at that intersection. She was parked at that intersection heading north on Carmel Valley and jammed in. And the person who didn't like what she apparently did sometime in the past was right in front of her. And she was close to their car, and somebody was right behind her, and someone was to her left and someone was to her right. And you'll see why that's, when you're thinking about it, why that's important in a minute. So she watched as the person was yelling out their window, and she started recording on her iPhone just as the person got out of their car. We'll play this a couple of times. Wrong one. So it's that quick. And I'll add facts into this and see what you want to do. So put yourself in this person's position, except make them a CCW holder. So they're armed in their car. When I carry appendix, I don't really like carrying appendix in my car. One, it's uncomfortable. And two, when you think about it, it could be really uncomfortable. And so when I carry appendix, I usually take my gun out, put it down the side of my seat, and then re-carry one before I get out of the car. So I'm not doing it outside the car. It's a little contortionist, but I feel more comfortable when I'm driving with it there. So imagine you're that CCW holder. You're in your car, you got your gun. So she is armed, and she wasn't. She isn't a CCW holder. What do?
Call 911.
Well, they'll get there in like 7 minutes, so that'll take care of it. No, don't call 911 because you're distracted if you're doing that. Right? This is happening right now. In fact, she shouldn't have been on her phone. That's tying up her attention and her hands. She has made herself more vulnerable by doing that. If you believe you have the time, get the recording going so there's audio, but don't have something in your hands. If you have the ability to do that without occupying your hands, she needed her hands free for what was happening. Let's add another fact. She had a 1-year-old in a car seat in the back of her car. Okay, so that's the scenario she's presented with, and you're presented with in this case. Let's do it again. Okay, so what is that? You had a half a second to ID that. What is it?
Looks like a scope from a rifle.
I think it's a flashlight.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a flashlight.
Oh, there's the
It is a flashlight, but it could also be a stun gun.
Yeah, but I'm looking at, look what we're, okay, let's go slow-mo, still the frame, and let's think about this for 10 seconds.
Well, it's something that's going to hurt her, and she's trying to break.
And she's banging on the window.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to after the first bang on the window, and the next one's coming.
You're honking and
Show of hands, do you fire through the window?
no.
You're probably not yet in imminent danger. And you're not shooting somebody that's unarmed, which is a step up from shooting somebody that is unarmed. It's harder, unless you're a cop, it's hard as a citizen to shoot somebody that's unarmed and recover from it. I'm not saying impossible, I'm just saying it's hard.
I have a question.
I'll repeat the question.
How do you know if something in her hand is going to go through your window?
You don't. You don't. And so in this, you need to think about these things. What am I going to do? And you shouldn't let things happen to you, particularly if you're a CCW. You should have thought about what I'm going to do with the information I have randomly in my head. What am I going to do in this situation? If somebody starts beating on my window with an object, what am I going to do? Okay, first thing you try to do is try to drive away. Why did I tell you she was jammed in? That became not an option. Not unless she was going to run into cars in front of her, behind her, and try to get out, which would have made things worse. So you can't get away. Leave the car, go out the other door. Okay, well, leave your kid behind. So that's not happening. So she can't leave. There is no escape. And we'll talk about California jury instructions with regard to stand your ground in California when we get to it. But it happens this fast, and she's banging on the window with someone. And I agree with all of you. I don't think you shoot through the window. You don't have enough information yet. Okay, let's add one more fact. Your self-defense case will turn on one fact or two facts. That will make the difference in whether you're convicted and go to prison or walk out. Let's add one more fact. The window breaks and you get glass on you. How many shoot at that point? I do. Once she breaks my window and her arm's going back for another hit, I don't have to take that hit. If she breaks my window and then says, I'm sorry for breaking your window, I probably don't get to shoot her. But I'm not taking that hit. I don't know what's in her hand. I haven't assessed whether it's a sharp-edged weapon or a blunt-edged weapon. I don't know if the next blow coming in is going to cause me mortal damage. And I'm going to be able to explain that. Because after she broke my window, all bets were off. While the window's still intact, I think that's the key in this case. While the window's intact, you're kind of on your own, unless you see a firearm. Say she drew and was coming up. You get to shoot then? You have to wait till the muzzle's on you? You do not. Do you have a reasonable belief in death or great bodily injury? Once the window's broken, do you have a reasonable belief in death and great bodily injury when she's going for try two?
Yes.
Okay, well then that's the jury instruction. That's what your jurors are going to be instructed with. So yeah, but look at the time of this. It's not, let me think about how this is developing. It's now. Decide. Live with your decision. Some people's decision is, it's got to be imminent for me. You have to be killing me before I kill you. Some people make that choice. I'm not one of those people. You're not getting to inflict damage on me if I believe it's going to cause great bodily injury or death. And I have a reasonable belief in that. But look, man, look how quick this happened. And this is just some regular citizen driving with her kid who pissed somebody off on the road. By the way, never get out of your car. Never, ever, ever get out of your car. Everything that happens to you should happen while you're in your car, while you're not the aggressor if you're in your car, unless you're running them over. Technically, you could be the aggressor then. Okay, let's go on to any questions?
I'm sorry. Jan Brady on meth or whatever. What happened to the woman in the car?
The question was, what happened? I'm just repeating because it doesn't pick up on the mics. I'm repeating the question. What happened in this case? After she didn't break the window, she did strike the rearview mirror, and knock it off, which, in an expensive car, is greater than $950 worth of vandalism. So that means she had a felony, vandalism. I believe it resolved itself as a misdemeanor vandalism. So she pled guilty to a misdemeanor vandalism. Wasn't charged for there was no battery. Battery requires a touching. This is an assault, and an assault in California is an attempted battery. So this appears to be an attempted battery. Theoretically, it could be an attempted battery with a deadly weapon. They probably could have charged her with assault with a deadly weapon. Attempted battery with a deadly weapon. It's on video. It seems fair to me, but that's all they wanted. The cop said it's probably the best I'm going to be able to do. You got the receipts and we've got the video, so we know she committed the vandalism. What do you want to do? At least she's on record now, and my friend backgrounded her, like on front page and stuff, and got great stuff. She had surprisingly, she had an anger management problem. And this wasn't the first try, and all that stuff existed. If you get out of your car and go after somebody, you're the aggressor. There's no way she could have claimed that she was anything other than the aggressor, no matter what happened. All right, what's the next thing she should have done right there? 911. Don't leave. You got damage to your car. You know, my friend had to leave work, went up and had to go to the scene and recover the mirror because she didn't stay. Mirror was still sitting in the road. You know, but his wife went home because she lived pretty close and called 911 after the fact. She called 911 right away. Sometimes, in these situations, whoever gets to 911 first is the victim, and whoever gets to 911 second is the defendant. All right, so if you have a beef with somebody, I'll tell you that there are some times that you may not want to do that. Okay, let's talk about this list. What are you going to do if you have a defensive use of firearm? And I don't mean shooting somebody. It's the most unusual event with a firearm that somebody gets shot. 90+% of the defensive uses of firearm in the United States are brandishing. Brandishing or assault. Get away from me, get away from me. This is brandishing. This is assault. As soon as you flag somebody with the muzzle, it's an assault. Don't flag them with the muzzle, it's a brandishing. It's right out of the jury instructions. We'll talk about brandishing. I got a whole section on that. See, this presentation isn't going to suck. It's going to be interesting. Don't leave. Don't leave. If you leave and you have defensively used, particularly if you shot somebody, if you leave, that's going to be spun into you knew you did something wrong. You had a consciousness of guilt. You fled the scene. You're going to get a jury instruction. They're going to say, if you left the scene, you jurors are allowed to presume that infers a consciousness of guilt in doing something wrong. Do not leave the scene unless you are unsafe. If you feel unsafe and need to leave the scene, don't go home and call tomorrow. Go around the corner. Go out of view. Don't leave the area. So that's the rules. Never leave the scene unless I'm unsafe. Don't leave the area. Don't have a gun. Let's jump back a minute. Don't have a gun in your hand. When a cop shows up to a 911 call of a shooting and they show up on the scene and you have a gun in your hand, what are you? A deadly threat. Now, I've seen, and there's a lot of variation in this, and Bill McLaren, who's one of the best firearms instructors in the United States, and who I used in one of my trials. He was a witness in one of these trials. We disagree on a really important issue, but we have different perspectives for that disagreement. And I understand what he's saying. I get it. We'll get that, but don't have a gun in your hand. Some people I've seen that firearms instructors say, put the gun down, put it back in your car. I'm not a fan of that. You just shot somebody. If they're still alive, you definitely pissed them off. If they have friends, you piss their friends off. I am not getting rid of my gun after I have a defensive use of gun. I'm gonna have that gun on me until a cop tells me I'm taking the gun off of you.
So you holster it?
Yes. The question is, what do you do with the gun then? Make it so it's not visible. And the problem in summer is sometimes you have loose clothing on. And so what do you do with it? Because you don't want to be doing that. And the cop says, raise your hands. You raise your hand, and the gun falls out. It's you're just making bad worse. And so if you're dressed like me, I just stick it in the back. I keep my hands out because when that cop comes, all they are concerned with is nobody's going to kill them. That's the first cop view. When I get to the scene, is there anybody that can hurt me in view? Then the next question is there anybody hurt that I can help? Then the next question is, the person that got hurt, who hurt them? Can I get them in custody? So those are the primaries. And the primary for that police officer is self-protection because they need to preserve the scene. They can't help somebody if they get hurt. So understand that. What do you do with your gun is up to you. Know in advance what you're going to do. If I'm close to my car, I am going to put it back in my car. Even if that just means laying it on the seat so it's immediately available and you put your window down. Or am I just going to stick it in reholster and cover the holster? Or am I going to I don't have a holster, it came out of my car, I'm just going to put it in the back of my belt. Do I have loose sweatpants on? I can't do that. I got to put it somewhere, not in my hand. Can I go over to this bush, stand next to the bush and put the gun in the bush? No. Well, you can if you got no choice. It's just do something with your gun. Don't make statements to civilians. You are not there to explain to people what has happened. Don't talk to people about what happened. Do not alter the nature, character of your gun, ammunition, or the scene. What is that called? Consciousness of guilt. You know what? You picked the wrong day to have a 32-round magazine. You're not going to change the magazine out to make it a 10. You're going to get investigated for your magazine. Sorry. Because if you change it, guess what jury instruction you get again? By altering the character of the scene. Now people think you're dishonest. Your entire case hinges on your honesty. You could lose your case for self-defense or righteous self-defense because you did something wrong afterwards and tried to fudge the facts a little bit. Render first aid. This is where Bill and I disagree. I get it. You just shot somebody. The last thing you want to do is go close. You don't know if they're dead. You don't know if they're armed more than whatever they were armed with before. I see it as a humanitarian issue. Now imagine this scenario in a trial. There's nobody around. It's just the two of you. And you shot somebody. And they're not dead because of the bullet. Well, they are. They're dead because it took 6 minutes to bleed out and the cop got there in 7. And the coroner goes, if someone had put a tourniquet on his leg, he'd still be alive. But you stood there and watched them bleed to death because you're the only one that could have rendered aid. And so I think that that's where I come down. If there are other people there, have them render aid. Instruct them to render aid. If you are the only person there, you got to make a hard decision. Or the other way is be absolutely certain you've killed them. You know, if I put 8 rounds in somebody into their chest with a Kimber Pro Carry 2 45, they're dead. I will then render aid. That's called having your cake and eating it too. I make light of some of this stuff, but understand these are choices. Those choices are going to make a difference. Make a difference for me. Make a difference for you in your trial. Make a difference for me as your lawyer. Have someone else call 911. Unless you're the only person on the scene, you must call 911. What do we call people who shoot people? Don't call 911 and leave. Sometimes murderers. You shot somebody, didn't call 911 and left? Okay, you're going to have to explain that to a jury and pass the straight face test why that happened. So you have to find some way to call 911. Even if you're in an area that has no 911 cell service, say it's out in the road, middle of Arizona. You know, your cell phone drops, right? You're driving Yuma, you got dead spots there. Go somewhere you're getting service. You have a question, sir?
Yeah, why would something you have up there have someone else call 911 instead of yourself?
Because I don't want your voice on 911. What's the point of a 911 operator? To collect information, to dispatch police officers to a scene and collect information for future prosecutions. That is the point. The 911 operator will keep you on the phone seeking more information from you. How many people have shot somebody before in this room? I see no hands. And that's good. Even if you had shot somebody before, you shouldn't have raised your hand. So you passed the lawyer test. You are now mentally and physically stressed. You don't have a videotape in your head. It doesn't run sequentially. Sometimes you miss things. Sometimes it skips. Sometimes it stutters. You're not giving accurate information in the immediate offset of a defensive use of force. But that's going to be used as not I made a mistake, it's I lied to protect myself. I don't want your voice on 911. There has to be a 911 call. Someone can make that 911 call.
Would you want to make the 911 call if there are other people there, but let's say they're wearing a hat or a t-shirt that leads you to believe they might be anti-gun?
No. I don't want your voice on the 911 call. Can you call 911, tell them somebody's been shot, send a cop and an ambulance, and tell them that there was a defensive use of, somebody feared for their life and shot somebody. You can tell them whatever you want, but don't talk on the 911 call.
Now, can't they get your number you're calling from on their screen?
Yes. Yeah, certainly, 100%. The number will come up.
So if you don't identify yourself as the shooter, they're gonna know you're the shooter eventually.
Oh, eventually, yeah. And remember, when you call 911 off a cell phone, it goes to it goes to CHP, generic CHP officer. Then you have to ask for the agency. Like, it may take a minute. Like, are you sheriff or are you SDPD? Are you Carlsbad? Are you Chula Vista? You know, they've got to determine where that call, that operator is going to send it to the reporting agency for where you're located. Right? So it's going to take a little while sometimes, you know, and that's why people sometimes have difficulty. Tell me where you are. It's not just tell me where you are so I can get a cop to you. It's tell me where you are so I can get the right cop to you.
I think another important thing is to know that even before someone answers the 911, the recording is going.
Yeah, as soon as it rings, you hear 911 start with the ring. The recording starts with the ring. So you're on 911 even though the operator hasn't answered. What's being said, background noises are all there. Again, C, don't make statements to civilians because that could be recorded on their phone on the 911 call. They could hear you making those statements. Call your attorney. You should, if you have a CCW, even if you don't have a CCW, if you have guns in your home, but what's the point of having a gun in your home? It's for your personal protection of you and your family, unless then you're an exclusive hunter and there's guns are unloaded in your garage, locked in a safe for purposes of hunting and collecting. That's less than 10% of the population that own guns, that are exclusive hunters and collectors. The rest of us have guns to protect our families and ourselves. So if you don't have a CCW, but you got a gun in your house, if someone tries to break into your house and you shoot them, you need insurance. USCCA is here. They're a good insurance. They paid my bills before for their members. They paid the bond within 7 days. So the money that you lay out for bond, my client had a check back in 7 days from USCCA for the money he laid out for bond. And they also come with the ability to select an attorney. It doesn't have to be me. I've done a lot of this. There aren't a lot of lawyers that really kind of specialize in gun rights, gun law. It's like, the analogy I give is, you need a doctor. Does it make a difference whether you need a podiatrist or a proctologist? Well, yeah. Okay, so it's like a lawyer. You don't need a real estate lawyer. You don't need a criminal lawyer just started. You don't need a criminal lawyer that doesn't know firearms, doesn't understand firearms. Those are questions you should have with the lawyer you're hiring. Tell me your experience with firearms. What do you know about firearms? Do you own firearms? You have a CCW. You know how that process works. USCCA has a list of lawyers that you can choose from in Southern California, by county, Riverside, San Diego. When you pick somebody, be sure that they're county-based, because some people have an office in San Diego, but they're from LA. So they don't do a whole lot in San Diego. And believe it or not, this is still a relationship business. And what I mean by that is, I've been in the county practicing for 33 years. Most of the DAs and public defenders that I work with are now judges. I've worked with the same DAs for 30 years. You know, it's like anything else in the world. It's easier to deal with people you know and people you don't know. And so those are questions you should be asking, hiring a lawyer.
You're not retired yet, are you?
What?
You're not retired, are you?
Man, I don't look that bad yet, do I?
33 years.
So I'll go back and put my hat on so I can cover my face. It's no, yes, I'm still working. I'll probably be working for at least another 5-7 years is my guess, depending on if the cases stay interesting. So yeah, I've got my information on the back end of the presentation. We got to move. We only got 25 minutes left. Talk with first responders. I have gone back and forth with myself on this. Should you talk with the cops that show up on the scene? Okay, that's a selective item. Should you talk with the detectives that are going to be talking to you within an hour or two? And I've come to the conclusion that you can't advance your cause by talking to the cops on the scene. Why? Because you are stressed. Remember that videotape thing again. You're just not right. Believe it or not, you won't be right. And if you are right, well, that's a problem too. You know, if you're calm, cool, and collected and have a perfect recall, well, then you're a sociopath. So we have two distinct problems there. You know, it's, I would expect most people to be freaked out, especially if they just shot somebody. Never mind the non-shooting defensive use. I don't think you can advance your cause. Everybody make that choice themselves. You can't talk, and when we get to one of my cases, I'll show you this. This guy just said stuff that was crazy, and was used against him. Assess your physical and mental health. Physical and mental health. Again, you're not right. For us that perhaps are approaching the age where we get the mail from AARP, American Association of Retired People, then you have some physical health issues probably. Even if you're younger, you could have those. You may have high blood pressure. You may have anxiety disorder. You may have something. You know why that's important? Because that's a good reason not to give a statement. I'm just not right now. I'll talk to you later, but I can't talk to you right now. Can you get me in an ambulance? I don't feel well. I'm having trouble with my breathing. My pulse is racing. I'm feeling lightheaded. Can you please get me an ambulance? It is a much better look for you to leave the scene in an ambulance than handcuffed in the back of a squad car. I just like that look better. It also explains that you're a normal human being. Now, I'm not saying give false information about your health and well-being. I'm just saying don't minimize it. If you feel that way, say it. Get me an ambulance. And they will get you an ambulance, 100% guaranteed. Give statements on the basis of that physical or mental health. Again, I'm a proponent of not giving statements. Don't lie about anything, ever. If you don't talk, that's easy. When you start talking, do not lie about anything. It will be crammed down your throat later. And I'll have to deal with it. Don't text, don't call, don't write, don't make TikToks. But you know, do text your lawyer. Do call your lawyer. It's, unless you're unlucky, it'll take 3 to 5 minutes for the first responder to get on scene. You have 3 to 5 minutes to deal with what's going on around you. If you have my number or somebody else's number in your phone, if it's in contacts, you can immediately have that to me. It's possible at 2 o'clock in the morning I'll miss your call, but I don't shut my phone off. I usually leave it like in a different room so I don't get beat by my wife for the pings for the text going off, but I leave the ringer on. So if I don't call, just keep calling. If somebody keeps calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I will wake up and answer the phone. You know, and it's better to have me there quickly than tomorrow. If you give partial information, you may go to jail. If you say absolutely nothing, you are going to jail. Understand that. If you say nothing, you are going to jail. It doesn't mean I won't have you out of jail in 6 hours or 4 hours, however long it takes to process you, but you're going to jail. Understand that. They're not going to say, all right, somebody got shot, that's your gun. Let's figure this out tomorrow. They're putting you in custody because they want to see if they can talk to you. So you're getting arrested by the law enforcement first responders, and then the detectives are going to come and try to talk to you. And unless you say, I can't really talk to you right now, I'm still not right, I need to talk to my lawyer first before I talk to you, that will not come up in court. That doesn't happen. That doesn't come up in court. All that comes up in court is nothing. No statement.
I've heard that you can say something like, I would love to cooperate with you, I will talk to you, but, and then you say how bad you're feeling right now and you can't.
I just can't talk to you right now. I don't have the mental, I'm not in the right mental state to talk to you right now, maybe in a little while. Right? But that doesn't, when you say it that way, you're not asserting your Miranda rights. because you haven't advocated for a lawyer or asserted your right to silence. In order to advocate or invoke your Miranda rights, you have to say those two things. I don't want to speak to you. I want a lawyer. Those two things enable the Miranda rights. If you say, I can't talk to you right now, I don't feel well, Miranda's not activated.
So what's the difference? Because I've been told in a situation like that, you can tell the officer that I'll be glad to make a statement once I've gotten a lawyer.
You know, I like that, but I don't like it. And it shouldn't come up, but there are situations conceivably, something like, and it makes you look like, even jurors who are told you can't take that into account, that people have Fifth Amendment privilege to be free from self-incrimination, they subtly use it against you. You know, I'm not talking to you to talk a lawyer. Well, why? Because you knew you did something wrong? That why you need a lawyer? Why are you not talking to the cops? Cops would have let you go if you would have told them what happened, like you're telling us. Why couldn't you have told that them? You know, and so, yes, there are different ways you can handle this. You need to think about how you're going to handle it for you, not for me. I know how I'm doing it. I know how this will work for me. I've already thought about it. And then stick to the game plan. Having shot somebody, being freaked out, and then calling an audible for your well-laid plans is not a recipe for success. Stick to your game plan.
Will you say again what invokes your Miranda rights? Exactly what?
I don't want to talk to you. I want a lawyer. Both of those. There's two parts to Miranda. There's invocation of the right to counsel and invocation of the right to silence.
So would you prefer us doing that, or prefer us to say, I don't feel like it right now?
If you're not making statements, I don't give a crap about Miranda. All Miranda does is suppress your statements. You don't make any statements, Miranda's irrelevant. Miranda doesn't get your case dismissed. Miranda just means your statements can't be used against you. So if you're not talking, there's no Miranda issue. Your problem isn't just criminal charges. Your problem is you're going to get sued, especially if you shoot somebody, because anybody can sue anybody for anything. And if this happened in your house, guess who the deep pocket is? Homeowners. Homeowners, the deep pocket. Even auto policies, if this happened in or around your car, auto policy. Some lawyer will sue your insurance company, and your insurance company will give them $200,000 to go away. Why? Because it'll cost them $500,000 to go to trial. It's all about money. It's just about the numbers. Not about you. It's not about whether you're right. And they make the decision. I don't want you to settle with them. Too bad. We're the insurance company. It's our money. We'll do what we want.
Of course, then they'll sit there and cancel you right after.
USCCA gives you $2 million. $2 million still, Adam? $2 million in civil coverage. All right, and they're expanding their coverage this week, actually. And you know, I want to be clear. I'm not just advocating for USCCA. I believe that they're one of the best products out there. There are other products out there that you can look at. But I've had success with USCCA, paying the bills, paying on time, not fighting me on things, and providing the coverage. All right, brandishing. What is brandishing? Drawing or exhibiting a firearm, even unloaded, even if the victim didn't know. That means you brandished it, but the person was looking in a different direction, but some third party saw it. So you can brandish an unloaded gun. But here's the key. In a rude, angry, or threatening manner. Well, there's a qualification, except in self-defense. Brandishing in self-defense is legal. Self-defense is legal. But why even go down that road? Why have to establish self-defense? So what are you going to do if you ever brandish? And you have to decide whether you're going to brandish. Some people say the only time my gun's coming out is when I am in danger of great bodily injury or death. My gun is never coming out until I'm in danger of great, because there's too much variable at that point. You know, somebody's coming up saying, I'm going to kick your ass, and you're a 110-pound woman, it's a 310-pound man, coming at you with fists squared, and you brandish and say, get away from me, and they say, fuck you, and keep moving. Okay, where are you going now? There's only one way this ends, right? They take your gun and shoot you, or you shoot them, because you raised the stakes. Can that be used against you? Yeah, but most brandishings end confrontations. So what are you going to do? If you ever brandish, the minute that gun is visible, you start apologizing. I'm sorry you made me do this. Can you please get away from me? Boy, I wish I didn't have to take this gun out. What are you not?
Rude and threatening.
You're not rude. You're not angry. And don't yell it. Hey, sorry, really sorry for this. I'm armed. Can you get away from me? Please, I don't want this to escalate. I'm backing up. Get away from me. Sorry. Don't make me do this. Can't be convicted of brandishing if you're not rude, angry, or threatening. Prosecutors to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. Tie your brandishing to a low monotone apologetic chain. I'm not saying it'll be perfect. I'm just saying you've enabled me to beat this. If you take your gun out and scream, get the fuck away from me or I'm going to kill you, well, that sounds rude. Right? So, we're in a different game then. We're not on that section. Now we're at self-defense. I'm not saying it's not going to work. I'm just saying, throw me some love. Help me, with this. All right, case one. 5 minutes each. All right. A man, 50s, armed with a knife, Mission Valley condo complex, walking with his wife at night, walking around. He is not armed with a firearm. He has a really large knife on him, like 9-inch blade. It's like that, Crocodile Dundee. That's not a knife. He had one of those. Homeless person moves into the compound or the protected courtyard of his condo complex. It's a high-end condo complex in Mission Valley. Person's armed with carts, items in the cart, so there's an argument and there's a stabbing, but not the way you think. So the homeless person reaches into their cart. He tells them to get out of here. Person gets angry, homeless person gets angry, reaches into their cart, starts pulling stuff out. He takes his knife out. Homeless person disarms him and stabs him 3 times. He went to jail.
He who?
The guy that got stabbed went to jail. Why? Because an eyewitness, an 18-year-old security guard, told the cops at the scene, I don't think he should have taken the knife out. So he committed an assault with a deadly weapon. The homeless person was acting in self-defense.
The 18-year-old could have gone to jail.
Well, you know what? You're all going, oh, come on. I thought the same thing. Cops arrested him. He goes to jail. USCCA paid the bill. We had him out of jail. In fact, my bondsman was at the jail before his booking was finished. Bond was posted. Couldn't post bond. He had to wait for an hour because he wasn't done with booking. So he got out of jail the minute he was eligible to get out of jail. USCCA paid I think it was $4,000. He had a check for that right away, paying his bond.
He was covered by USCCA on a knife?
Yes,
situation?
yes. Doesn't have to be a gun. It can be any weapon,
Oh,
any lawful weapon.
I didn't know that.
Show up with a cannon? I'm not sure USCCA is going to cover you. Adam, you can take that up the chain. If somebody shows up with a smoothbore cannon, is USCCA covering that? He got arrested, felony arrest, and they booked him on assault with a deadly weapon. His wife got in touch with me as he was being taken to the hospital from the scene. He was stabbed, he had to go to the hospital. So I got involved within an hour of this happening. And USCCA routed it to me. So she called USCCA and they called me within an hour. I managed to talk the DA into not filing any charges. So he was out of jail. He never went back to court, never went to court at all. And the DA didn't file any charges. We got his knife back. I guess a memento. It's rare you have a knife that you've been stabbed with.
Where did he get stabbed, if you don't mind?
3 times in the arm. And by the way, this may be a video on USCCA website because he and I flew out to Wisconsin about 2 months ago and we did a video. They're going to put it on their YouTube channel. And so you might see it on there pretty quickly. They have a very professional production department at USCCA at their headquarters in Wisconsin. So they flew us out, put us up for a couple of days, fed us, and we did the videos there. This was a good result for this case. He didn't lose the CCW. He didn't have to get charged with a felony, but he did get arrested. Remember, he didn't say anything at the scene. He got arrested. But he got arrested because of that security guard. That was the tiebreaker for the cops. Bad, bad. Case 2, 20-year-old man, disabled veteran. An important fact. Graduated high school in 2012 and enlisted in the Army as an infantryman in 2012. What does that tell you about that person?
Came in right after 2000.
They are going to combat. They joined the military and they know they're going to Iraq or Afghanistan. No possible way around it. 11 Bravo, which is the code, the infantry code for the Army. While he was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, during a night helo onto a roof out of a Black Hawk helicopter, he lost the rope. He fell 20 feet to the roof and then rolled off a second-story roof, hit the ground, wound up ruining his shoulder and his knee. He was 65% VA disability rating, so he's getting paid by the VA for his disability rating. You had a question? Okay. He's with his wife looking at houses in, all those all the complexes going up in Ochai Ranch. It's just mad. I drove up the 125 yesterday and I couldn't believe it from South Bay, all the construction. He was down there looking at houses. They were going home, and he was. I still look at the pictures of this case because it shows gas at like $3.20 a gallon, and I get nostalgic. When I look at this. This is about 2 years ago. And they stopped at a Spring Valley gas station. They found on Gas Buddy because it was the cheapest gas. So on his way home, he was going to a gas station. They had a conflict at the gas station. Did he brandish? Did he point? Who knows? An eyewitness said that he pointed his gun at somebody he got in an argument with at the gas station. He had a felony arrest for assault with a deadly weapon. His CCW was taken, and he had a felony charge. All right, so guess what? I got a video of this one from security cameras at the gas station. Yeah, he was charged with an assault with a deadly weapon. All right, so CCW holder, my client, is in the Jeep. Of course, you can't write this stuff. The Jeep's so high, you can't see what happened behind it. This was played for the jury. But you can see my dude's cap. You see it on the top of the back end of the Jeep by the gas pump? That's his white cap. And that's an important factor because it was like following the cap, down the top of because we never really see their heads. This guy and as I kept repeating it at trial, teal blue PT Cruiser. So he's driving a teal blue PT Cruiser, which seemed not very manly to me. Why did I keep repeating it? Because it pissed him off. And so every time I talk about his car, I'd say, now when you moved your teal blue PT Cruiser in front of my client, and you could see him, he finally blew, got angry, lost his temper. It's like, I want to run up to the jurors when it doesn't always work. It's like one of those, let's see how this goes. I want to run up to the jurors and like high five the front row, because this worked out perfectly. All right, so they're getting in an argument. He thinks that was his pump. Gas Buddy, a lot of people waiting for the cheap gas. So he thinks that was his pump coming from that direction. My client had been waiting for 5 minutes, pulled up. He pulls up, not in this direction, but nose to nose before he slides forward. And within 30 seconds, he's screaming at my client's wife, who is in the passenger seat behind the door, screaming at her, "You're lying, you fucking bitch." So that's how it started. And then my client's at the pump trying to figure things out. And then he jams his car in front of him, and that's where the video starts. So he has just been screaming at his wife, and he didn't hear it because it's a real Bancroft. It's a really busy road. So a lot of road noise. He didn't really hear that happening. He just saw some guy jam his car in front of him and then head towards his open passenger driver's side door. So this guy's heading right around the back of the car. Follow the white cap. You'll see it move a little bit. Why did he move forward? He said, I thought this guy was trying to get in my car. My wife's in there. My keys are in there. I thought he was going to try to either take my car or get in or do something, so I wanted to block the door. No guns out at this point. He's just blocking the door and saying, what are you doing? Why are you advancing on me? This guy comes up to him. They're pretty close. He's yelling at him. You know, that's my pump. Your wife's a lying bitch. Watch the cap. He looks for a way out. See his cap turn? The bill is facing the back. Now, I blew this up in trial, so it was clear for the jurors. He's looking for a way out. You can just know on the cap he's not looking at him right now. And then you'll see the winner. Here comes the fist. That was that guy's fist. Watch it again. And as soon as he saw the fist coming, he drew. He was out, and he said 1.5 seconds. So he was on his game from appendix. 1.5 seconds. He said he pointed at the ground, and he said it was freaking me out because I didn't want my gun pointing at the gas pump. He goes, I didn't know what to do with it because down this way was the gas pump. That way was him. I didn't want to put the gun on him yet. What was your question?
Oh, no.
Okay. I didn't want to put the gun on him. So I pulled. When he pulls, what does a rational human being do? Right. No, he stands there and self-admittedly says, fuck you, shoot me. That came out in trial. And so what does he do? He goes back to his car, gets inside, leaves his car there, gets his phone. That's the end of this one. Gets his phone, takes a picture of the license plate, walks back around the car, takes a picture of my client, and then calls 911. My client was the second caller. Why did this go against my client? Because a real anti-gunner, because we had that person on audio yelling, this is what all you Trumpers are like.
Who was yelling that? I'm sorry.
The third party who witnessed it and said that there was an assault with a deadly weapon and not a brandishing. And so cops arrested him. He was charged with ADW. In fact, we were kicking their ass so bad early in the case that the DA changed the charge from assault with a deadly weapon to assault with a semi-automatic firearm. That's a charge in California. That's back when revolvers were the big guns and semi-autos were these new novel, nobody carries these except the feds. Well, the punishment for semi-automatic firearm, assault with semi-automatic firearm, is 3, 6, or 9 years in state prison. And it can't be reduced to a misdemeanor. So they squeezed him so hard because he wouldn't settle on their terms that they charged a non-reducible felony. So we went to trial with a non-reducible felony. It means if he would have been convicted, he would have been convicted violent felon for the balance of his life. And looking at 19 years in state prison if he'd been convicted. This guy had guts. I really liked this guy. He was a good man, and he had good intentions. I just think he was put in a really bad position, and a position anybody could have been put in. All right, so what happened at trial? 2 hours, not guilty. 6 jurors stayed around and gave him a hug on the way out the door. So you don't see that happening very often. We got his gun back, we got his CCW back. That was the end of it. Yeah, but that was a 1.5-year nightmare for that guy. 1.5-year nightmare. Bad news on this case. Wasn't a member of USCCA, called 2 days later and tried to join. Insurance companies will not sell you fire insurance for your house when your house has burned down. It's a bad business model for them. So it cost him a lot of money for me to do this. We were in trial for 4 days. It took a lot of work in order to get this ready. And it's an expensive business. And once you get into more experienced lawyers, it's going to be a really expensive business.
Without that specific.
This case, depending upon how complicated it was, is between $50,000 and $75,000.
Was that Mara Elliott's office?
No. It was Summer Steffen. Here's the good news on this. The good news on this is Michael Schwartz, San Diego County Gun Owners, and I went to Summer Steffen, and she had a meeting with us on the basis of this case. And I told her that her office, her branch offices, were mishandling CCW cases, that they weren't assessing them correctly, that they didn't understand that people who have guns have them legally. And she changed the policy. And so CCW cases are now only issued by her special operations branch that deal with cop shootings.
Was this ADA a zealot, or is this pretty typical?
They were young, and they didn't know guns, and they didn't understand. And they sure as hell didn't understand me or him. You know, this wasn't something I was giving up.
Your client couldn't sue that guy?
He didn't want involved for another 2 years on this. He wanted to put it behind him.
You couldn't take his house, or he couldn't try to take his house?
He could, but it would have taken a long time, you know?
Yeah.
I got to have 5 more minutes. I got one more case. Okay, last one. This just happened, still going. Man 30s armed with a CCW, Carlsbad road rage. 2 people said he pointed a gun at them, strobed them, pointed a gun at them, and then drove off. Our guy says, these guys cut me off, threw a bottle at my car. He had pictures too. Guy really did his homework. The dent in his car, bottles. So these guys lied. 2 guys lied and said he pointed at them. Cops arrested him on the basis of that. You know, he left the scene and got chased by them. It's on 911. The 911 operator is telling the victims, please stop chasing the man with the gun. What was their response? Attitude. An actual word that was used. Like giving the dispatcher shit. They still charged him. He's looking at ADW. Again, all these are serious crimes. Guns are bad in California with regard to numbers. So the DA charged him on this case, and I was able to, it took me like 2-3 weeks to prove to them that their victims were liars. I used the 911 call, I backgrounded them, I had the receipts. DA did something they never do, they dismissed the case. Why? Because Spec Ops was involved, special operations. The negotiation we had done on the previous case. So it wasn't the issuing DA in North County that was issuing the case, it was Spec Ops. They understood this was a hard case because their victims were liars. So that thing that I did for the client before this paid benefits for this dude. He got his case wiped out, dismissed before prelim. We never even went to court, which is really unusual for a violent felony with a firearm. No evidence is even taken on it that they believe that. So they dismissed that. They issued a gun violence restraining order. Gun violence restraining order was issued by the Carlsbad cops at the same time, saying, we want your other guns too, not just the gun we took from you. We don't think that you're responsible enough to have other guns. Civil lawsuit, red flag. And all that it took was a 1-sentence line. The cop is signing an affidavit, but you know what the affidavit says? These 2 dudes told me he pointed a gun at them. That's what he's affidaviting. Not that they're right, just that they said it. 4 o'clock in the morning, a judge signs that. And this is how concerned the cops were with his guns. He bailed out, got him bailed out. They let him go home. He had to turn the guns in 24 hours later. So he was such a threat that he had to go home, get his own guns, and turn them into an FFL for storage. We had to go through a whole bunch of machinations with that. But I got the Carlsbad city attorney to dismiss the GVRO before we got to court. We showed up in court and they dismissed it.
All 3 of these cases, let's say you have that burner gun that they've been
Yeah.
showing down there. How does that play in against, that's not a lethal firearm, I mean.
I'm sorry, repeat that for me?
If you, in all 3 cases, instead of the gun, it
Yeah.
was one of those burner guns,
Is it brandished or?
they've been
Hard
punished
rubber
it,
ball,
and they-
less lethal.
Oh, you mean you mean like a non-firearm?
Yeah.
But it looks like.
Oh, well, it's going to change the case completely because you're not going to get assault with a firearm or the firearm enhancements. And so you may still get charged, but it'll become a very low-level offense. Let me finish this up because I'm eating somebody else's time. I'm still in the middle of this. So we go to get his CCW back. Everything's gone. We go to get his, and this is important to him. He is executive protection. He's lost his livelihood. He can't carry concealed. He's worked with people in Hollywood, in LA, and sports figures. He does protection for them because he's armed. And so he lost it. So he goes to get it back, and guess what sheriff says? Oh, I'm sorry. SB 2, Senate Bill 2 came into effect on January 1st. It says if you've ever had a TRO, you can't have a CCW for 5 years, even though you're not a prohibited person. So, challenged it. And 2 weeks ago, I got a 14-page written order, first in the state, fighting SB 2, because it came into effect January 1st, saying that it was a violation of due process to take my guy's CCW. Because he had no right to intervene in the GVRO process that happened the day he got arrested. He had a right 3 weeks later, but we didn't get that 3 weeks later. They dismissed before that. And the judge agreed and said, you can't take a man's livelihood on the basis of two liars' statements, no matter what the law says. So she found it unconstitutional. Last thing, and then I'm done. I called the sheriff Friday. Said, why doesn't he have his CCW back? Said, DOJ is being a pain in the ass. They don't know what to do with it. The first time it's happened, gone up, and they said, you're not getting this law, and so give him his CCW. He said, well, we're going to run this up the chain, which means it's going up to Bonta and some of his acolytes. But here's where we're at. I told him if I didn't have the CCW by Wednesday, I was going to file an order to show cause why the sheriff shouldn't be held in contempt of court. And then we're going to go back to court, and I'm going to sue her, and I'm going to bill her for it, for my time, not my client. And so I'm hoping that we get a CCW back by Wednesday, but I'm not optimistic. That's enough for me, and I'm eating somebody's time.